What I want to know is, how do you smoke Cuban cigars occasionally?
I was wondering if we were going to talk about our past addiction or if we're going straight into wellness.
I like to keep it real.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's actually awesome. Yeah, that's an interesting balance of things. It's nothing, like I was telling you earlier, it's not abusive. I'll have like 2 per week, not every week. It's not a daily regular thing. But it's something that I enjoy doing with some friends and some guys that, so whether it be a few hockey buddies that, I guess it's that reaction. The first time I brought him out on one of our hockey tailgates and I passed around some cigars, there was an enthusiasm and everyone congregated and we had a good time after our hockey game. And I've got, a really close friend of mine in Montreal. And, he'll go out in the winter and have his cigar while I'm in Florida having my cigar, and we'll have a FaceTime catching up and all that. So,
can you buy Cubans in Canada, like at a cigar store?
Yes. And that's where I get them.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can get them somewhere locally in Florida, but I guess I'm not hooked up with the local supply there.
Yeah, I used to have a couple stores in LA where, you give them the little secret handshake kind of thing, and they let you in the back room to the humidor. But I'm always jealous of people who can enjoy cigars and control it. And some people that don't have kind of addictive tendencies would be like, oh, it's just a matter of willpower. It's really not for me. Like if I had one cigar today, I guarantee you I would be online ordering from the Canary Islands or something, like I used to do. When I get those cigars, I smoke them all day. I just can't stop. Yeah, I'll have one going all day. It's problematic.
That adds up. The wives of me and my buddy who buy the Cubans together, whenever they see us coming back with some boxes, and he says, "So how many handbags is that for us?"
Right.
the Cubans add up, but
they're not cheap. I used to run up my credit cards like crazy. I'd be like, "Where did I spend all this money?" It's like, "Oh, look at the statement." It's like, Hong Kong Havana cigars, because you can buy Cubans online. The quality is suspect at times. But all right, last thing I'm going to ask you about that.
But I encourage balance, like I was telling you. You have the cigar in a cold plunge.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think tobacco, if it's organic tobacco, like Cuban tobacco is inherently, because they just don't use pesticides, from my understanding. Someone told me it's because they just can't afford it. I was like, hey, whatever the reason. But I think nicotine is good for you in moderation, as is tobacco, if it's not sprayed with a bunch of chemicals.
You bring up something that reminded me. I have a cousin of mine in Montreal that was smoking regularly cigars, but couldn't afford, was not buying Cubans and all that. So when he offered me a cigar, and I was all right, I decided to have one with him. Where's this from? Well, the large makers of domestic production of cigars were from cigarette makers, and there was like tar oozing out of this thing. It was like, and I'm sorry, I can't smoke this. I go, but you shouldn't be smoking this either. And here I am, like telling, right. I'm smoking a cigar, but telling you shouldn't smoke that cigar. But they're not all equal. Some of them are really bad for you.
Oh man, I used to have kind of debates with the guys at the cigar shop because I was such a Cuban purist, and I just felt they were just better, and they'd oh no, try this one, try that one, Dominican, whatever, this is the best. And I just felt like Cubans were always better, and I was trying to determine, is this just in my mind, and like, why wouldn't great tobacco grow in any similar climate, subtropical climate or whatever? So, but I held on to that. I'm like, I don't smoke anything but Cubans. And then one day I was with a friend of mine, and I had run out of cigars. He goes, man, a shipment came in. I got some come out. So I drove out to Santa Monica, all excited to smoke a cigar. There's no label on it. And we start smoking. Sometimes they don't have a label, right? And he said, how is it, man? And I said, oh, this is great. I'm so glad you got some Cubans. I don't want to smoke those other shitty cigars from the store. And about halfway through, he goes, you still like it? I go, oh man, it's amazing. He goes, that's a Nicaraguan. And he goes, that's the power of your mind.
Yeah.
Because it tasted just like a Cuban, because I thought it was. And at that time I was like, okay, maybe someone else is doing it right.
I'm no expert, but I have noticed that the Cubans, the actual wrapper seems to, I don't know if it's retained a little bit more of the moisture, or it seems a little oilier.
Yeah,
it seems like the non-Cubans are drier. So I'm wondering if it's if they're fast tracking the processing on non-Cubans. It's a small little modest difference, but there is something there. Yeah, so maybe it's in my mind as well.
Well, I'm going to live vicariously through you, and you keep enjoying them a couple times a week. For people like me that lack self-control, I just have to go, it's kind of zero or everything for me. So this is your second time here on The Lifestylist. Welcome back.
Thank you.
The last one we did in Florida in a little ass hotel room, so I feel like I'm much more professional in our setting here today. So I'm excited to have like a more relaxed kind of open space convo with you.
I love the space. Like I tell you, as soon as I walked in here, just felt awesome. So I'm way rather do this here than in a hotel room.
Me too.
This is beautiful.
Me too. And for those that want to hear the last episode, that would have been number 443, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes. And everything you hear about today, you can find at lukestorey.com/sleepwell. I discovered the hard way about the disaster of mold when I moved to Austin and had a water leak in our new home. The ordeal of removing extensive mold was eye-opening, to say the least. So the bad news is that most homes harbor some level of mold that can worsen asthma and allergies, disrupt your sleep, drain your energy, and cause massive brain fog, amongst other problems. And even if you can't see the mold, airborne levels in your home can be alarmingly high. But I've also got some good news for you. You can filter your air to stop mold before it starts affecting you. And when it comes to mold, an ounce of prevention beats a ton of remediation, and Jasper air purifiers are designed for just that purpose. With their advanced sensors, Jasper activates as soon as it detects airborne contaminants. Then its 3-stage filter system captures everything from mold to pet dander, VOCs, and toxins from household products. And the coolest thing is it does all that while being whisper quiet. So visit jasper.co now through May 2024 and use the code Luke for an exclusive $200 discount on your Jasper. That's JASPR.co. And for a deep dive into how Jasper works, make sure to check out The Lifestylist episode 527 and then take the quiz on their site to customize your home air protection. Again, that's jasper.co, and don't forget to use that code Luke to save $200 now through May 31st. So, this topic of sleep and specifically healthy mattresses is something I've been into for a very long time. And I feel like it was 20 years ago that I found your company, Essentia. Would you have had a store in Santa Monica 20 years ago, or was it 15? Like, when do you think that started?
That would be, I guess we're 15 or 16 years ago.
Okay,
was
so
the Santa Monica store.
Would have been around that time. And, I already had, I probably in 2000, I got my first organic latex mattress. And it was like sleeping on wood. It was super firm, very uncomfortable. But by that time I'd learned about, off-gassing and formaldehyde and all these shady things that we're going to get into. And I used to go into the Essentia store and lay on the mattresses, and they were like, I don't know, $3, $4, $5 grand. I mean, it was just totally out of my realm of possibilities, budget wise. And it was one of those things like on the vision board, someday I'll have an Essentia, And now, thankfully, public awareness has grown, but I still get questions from people all the time about these other kind of greenwashing, and I know you're a really classy guy. Last time, you didn't shit on any other brands. I really respect that. Mm-hmm. You're just like, hey, I stand by our products. If you like someone else, great. But I get questions all the time from people now, hey, I'm about to buy X, Y, or Z brand. What do you think? And I go, I'm open-minded. I go on their website and it's like, fake. It's has springs, or it's not really organic latex. So there's a lot of kind of misrepresentation of what a healthy mattress is. And when I look at the prices on these things, they're not even less expensive than what I believe is the best, which is what you guys are doing. Mm-hmm. So that's just kind of, the framework. So anyone listening, you don't have to ask me what I think the best mattress is yours. I'm not just saying it because you're here. We have one in that room. We have one in our master bedroom. After going through so many different kind of, supposedly healthy mattresses and sleeping systems over the years, there's just nothing has compared. So that's why I'm excited to talk to you.
I think it's just because there's one thing, whether you're just buying an organic mattress, when I say the word just, is because what's commonly out there as an organic mattress, and I'm talking about the good ones, where it's not really greenwashing, right? So greenwashing for me is there's a lot of them out there that like to use spa-like terms for names of their mattresses, but really the only thing that's organic will be the cotton shell. But then everything inside is polyester and polyurethane and all that. Those are the kind of, I would say, the non-legitimate brands, more in the very big box stores. But let's not go there. I'm talking about the general authentic organic brands out there. What they are the entry level to what you'd be buying in an inner spring. So if you would be going to a regular mattress store, and what's your entry level? It'll be a spring with a little bit of polyurethane and a polyester quilt and a polyester wrap. That's your basic mattress that probably 70% of the population is sleeping on, if not more. Well, when you go to organic, you're getting exactly that, but organic, which means you're going to have the springs, except instead of the polyurethane on top, you're going to put in latex. Instead of the polyester batting, you're going to put in wool, and then you're going to wrap that in organic cotton. So what you've accomplished there is eliminated the off-gassing of the chemicals that are there. But you didn't buy a good mattress. You didn't buy something that's performing. And I think that's kind of what got me into this, was recovering from illness, not personal, but for family members. And so that doesn't move the needle. Just organic is really good, really important, but it doesn't move the needle far enough on recovery and wellness and thriving, and all those things come from everything else we obsess over. Posture support, pressure redistribution, EMFs, thermoregulation. So that, I would say the difference, what you probably appreciate and didn't know, is that we're performance organic rather than just being an organic mattress.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, to me, it's just there's things that a lot of people, thankfully there's more public awareness, but there are certain foundational practices or ideas around health that I think many people miss. One of them is proper elimination. Like, when I got into this stuff, colon cleansing was like all the rage, and it made sense to me, right? It's like you might be taking all these detox supplements and taking saunas and stuff, but if you're not moving that stuff out of you, not good. People don't talk about that much. It's super foundational. Sleep, most people know sleep's good for you, but considering we spend so much of our life, I mean, however many hours you have on the planet, how many you spend in a bed on a mattress, like that should be right up there with water, digestion, your lighting environment. I mean, this is like top tier, top 5 elements of your whole regimen. So there's, people out there that are sleeping on these like sleep tracking, EMF mattresses and stuff. I'm just like, dude, it's not that complicated, But anyway, we're gonna break it down. But this is like people in the health scene. But you think about your average person, as you said, they're sleeping on. And like you sleep on whatever you can afford, dude. I mean, when $1,000 mattress for me back in the day, a latex mattress, was like a lot of money, so I get it. But most people that are unaware of this in the general public, I mean, are sleeping on these, these metal coils that are literally EMF antennas and essentially just wrapped in a barrel of crude oil. That's basically what it comes down to. It's not good. And then
one thing in
soaked
the house
with chemicals
that off gases the most in a home is the mattress. That's the highest concentration and density of chemicals is coming from a mattress. It is, yeah. So it's there's nothing else in the home, not coming out of the wood and the furniture. It's not even coming out of the laminate plastic furniture. The density and concentration that you get of petrochemicals in a mattress way exceeds the couch, way exceeds anything else you have on there. So it really is the number one thing.
Why is that? Just because it's like thick and porous, and
it basically has to have a minimum density for it to be able to even a poor one needs to last a couple of years. And if they're going to go with the low density foams that are used for benches or anything that doesn't have to give that kind of support, they would all be hammocking. So that higher concentration, higher weight, higher density means more chemicals.
And what kind of chemicals go in a traditional mattress?
Basically, it's polyurethane. Polyurethane is the chemical foam that's used, and what's most popular these days is obviously the memory foams, and the memory foams are higher density than the regular base foam. So again, it has more off-gassing there as well. And that's kind of when I started this, was trying to figure out how to give some physical wellness without the reactions that you get. So when somebody has health struggles, they typically become sensitized to their environment. So someone who's really ill will have reactions from polyurethane off-gassing, whereas me and you may not notice that because we're healthy and our body's fighting it. But you learn more from someone who is vulnerable, where they're breaking out into hives or they're having respiratory issues. Well, that's affecting us all. We're just battling it a little better. So that's when I was trying to figure out, how do I make latex perform as a memory foam does physically for the body,
right,
but without basically ingesting all these chemicals through your pores, through your lungs. And that was when I realized how toxic the regular mattresses were.
What's the deal with the fire retardants? I've seen things over the years with not just mattresses, but furniture in general, where they have these Prop 65 warnings.
Yep.
And what are the regulations? Like, how do you, as a manufacturer, for example, how do you get out of it being mandated that you spray your mattresses with formaldehyde and fire retardants and stuff like that? Because it seems like some people are just like, oh, we have to do it. This is, the manufacturing regulations force us to, so, oh, well.
So there is basically one way where you can bypass not adding the chemicals in it, but it's a synthetic process. So that's one of the issues. So for example, in the lower priced, more general consumer product mattresses, there'll be chemical additives. They'll put chemical additives in the fabric, backing of the fabric, sometimes on the fiber batting, and that's the chemical that's added so that it becomes a fire retardant. The only way to do it where it's not off-gassing is to get a Kevlar knit, which is a knit which encases the mattress inside. So while not being a natural organic product, we've tested that and there's no off-gassing that comes from it. It's completely inert. So that's the only bypass with the law.
Is it bulletproof?
No, it doesn't have to be that dense.
Oh, okay.
It just has
like a Kevlar vest.
An open flame test.
Okay, got it. So then they can have those chemicals inside, but the idea is that they're not breaking through. But
well, that's not for maintaining chemicals inside. That's for stop from the flame.
Okay, got it. So that's what they're using as a flame retardant, essentially as a barrier.
Exactly, yeah. So the barrier is actually the better one, but it's the most expensive option.
Got it.
The chemical spray is the cheap option, which is what you mainly find on mattresses.
I'm imagining that the former option of the Kevlar wrapping would make for very hot sleeping.
No, because it
sounds like it wouldn't breathe very well.
It's a knit, so it is a kind of open pores completely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's amazing how that is. It's not airlocked.
Got it.
So it is something that's and there is. It's strange where you should be able to make a choice. We're living in times where that's always in question. What can you decide for yourself and what should be regulated? And FR barriers is one of those things. If you have a doctor's note saying you have chemical sensitivities, you can bypass having any type of FR or Kevlar barrier. Most companies don't offer that option just because if it's sprayed into their production line, they're not offering that. But if it's a barrier, you can opt not to have the barrier on there with the proper doctor's note. Hopefully things change as there is a movement towards wellness and change and people making their own choices where you can just don't need a doctor's note to opt out of having a chemical.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, I've been looking at, RFK and the Maha movement and stuff, and everyone's wants to go after the the Fruit Loops and all this stuff. And I agree it would be good to not feed the population poison. But I have thought about it from the other side. It's like, that's the kind of government overreach that I often complain about and find fault with, right? If I own, Kellogg's and I want to put a bunch of shit in my cereal because it makes more money and, attracts little kids because it's colorful, and now some regulatory agency is imposing a rule on me that says I can't do that, I wouldn't like that. Not that I would ever do that because I'm not evil, but it's interesting. There's kind of a fine line, It's like you don't want to be regulated, but then there's a lot of bad actors out there that are making crappy toxic mattresses and food. Well, who's going to stop them?
I figured it all out with the Uber driver on my way here.
You did?
This was exactly the conversation that we were having. And I came to the conclusion that we need some regulation, and how the regulation works. If it kills you quickly, it's illegal. If it kills you slowly, it's legal. That's basically it. Chronic exposure to chemicals that'll kill you in 20 years, completely legal. If it becomes a short-term addiction, short-term life threat, like certain drugs,
right?
That's illegal.
Right. That's pretty good parameters. I like that. Talk to me about latex. Tell us what natural latex is. I find this fascinating. When we were, adjusting the mattress today before the recording, the word just came to me. It's tree blood. Yeah. That's kind of how I thought of it. I don't know if that's true, but that's how my imagination works sometimes. But tell us about latex producing trees and all that. It's just interesting to me. Yeah, we're sleeping on something that comes out of a tree.
Exactly. And it's going back to how the original kind of foam was made, right? When you think about it, it's sap from a tree, which is harvested and then is frothed up and then baked into making a solid permanent form. We call it latex. And basically this sap from a tree is the most resilient foam that you can ever make. It's long lasting. It doesn't off-gas any chemicals. The negative side of regular latex was, and when I was working on this 23 years ago, the main issues were, and you probably remember this from your original bed, it's like sleeping on almost like a tire. Maybe a tire is an exaggeration, but it's almost like sleeping on a tire.
It was brutal. Well, the funny thing is, just to interject for a second, the funny thing is that original, $1,000 organic latex mattress that was super hard, it was so uncomfortable, I ended up having to buy a polyurethane memory foam topper, which defeated the whole purpose of not off-gassing, but that's how I had to make it comfortable. So, yeah.
So if you look at the construction of a mattress, that's why even today, a conventional organic mattress is going to basically be the coil, the spring system, which not good for you. And then you'll have a few inches of this rubber, latex, organic latex rubber, because it's not so contouring, it's not so soft. So the springs help break down some of that firm feel. And then on top of that, they'll put wool or cotton or something again to soften up the top of it. So the foam itself is not really functional as you need it to be for a mattress. And that was the head scratcher for me. And that's where I was constantly trying to figure out how to reformulate this, how to make it different. We're the only ones who use essential oils in the fabrication of our latex foam, just because I had realized that we can change the behavior of this foam just by some of these additional organic ingredients that I can add into it, and basically changed how it reacted, allowed more pressure redistribution, create this kind of consistency that I used to call like a pizza dough, where it basically would give you the posture support that latex foam never had. And that's kind of what I patented, and that's where we're able to make a full, like we saw those heavy mattresses that we were moving around together, we're able to make a full latex core, but that feels contouring, supportive, dense, but still be fully non-toxic, not having any of this negative off-gassing. And then we've taken, over the last few years, we've taken it to other levels of thermoregulation on how it allows your body heat to naturally escape, pushing your limits of REM sleep and deep sleep. So we've obsessed over every little detail.
I mean, it's obvious. It's difficult to describe something like that. It's just like you got to spend a night on one to understand. But as you know, we used to have another bed here that I really, was attached to making work, and it was fine. But, my wife just hated it. And when we got our first Essentia, she's like, this needs to be the main bed. No more. So she called it, and she is obsessed with your freaking mattresses. Like I'm locked in for life. Like she'll never allow another type of mattress because it's I don't know, whatever you guys did, because it's like, it doesn't, what did you call it? Like hammocking.
Yeah.
It's soft, but your whole body doesn't sink into it, right? It doesn't become concave. It's like only sinks in where the pressure points are, which is where you want to have least resistance, right? Your elbows, your hips, your shoulders, etc. So however you figure that out, it freaking worked.
I receive messages from people who are in the wellness world, physical wellness, and know what you need to have, as far as support for a mattress. And I'll get messages from them, and it'll be like a little bit in shock, saying, I don't understand what you've done. Authentic messages. I don't know how you've done this. The bed feels soft when I touch it. When I lay down on it horizontally, all of a sudden it's giving me support. Where did that come from? How did something that to my hand touch felt soft, how now all of a sudden is supporting and nurturing my lower back and shoulders? So it is interesting where people become lifetime ambassadors and evangelists of Essentia. And I think that's why we're here today, 20 years later, where people who know, and people who know tell their friends that know, because obviously it's a big marketing machine out there, and we're just going along our paths. You won't see us on a TV commercial, but people who know pretty much
there's no turning back. Kind of like Cuban cigars.
Yeah.
For those of us that appreciate those. I've been meditating for over 2 decades, but I gotta tell you, it doesn't always come naturally to me, and it hasn't necessarily gotten easier over the years. For real, even after all this time, my brain still takes a while to finally shut up and let me drop into that magical place of silence. And I hear from a lot of meditators that this is the case, but what if there was a way to get into a meditative state effortlessly and quickly? Well, there is. It's fast, safe, and it works every damn time. It's called NewCalm. It's a subscription service that works on your phone on an app. It uses complex software along with musical tones to present the brain with a specific signal. And the brain simply follows that signal to your preset destination. And unlike traditional meditation, NewCalm offers a tangible physiological shift in your state of being from the very first session. And I find it's not only useful for calming my mental chatter and helping me drop into a flow state. Whether I need to prepare for challenging tasks with a clear head, boost my creativity, or gently drift into blissful sleep, NewCalm has Journey designed for any time of day and any mental goal. All you do is select the journey you want on the app based on how you want to feel, press play, and NewCalm does the rest. So visit newcalm.com, that's NUCALM, and sign up for their 7-day free trial. Then when you're ready to join, use the code Luke and get 15% off any subscription. I legit swear by this technology, and I've been using it damn near every day and night for many years. So I highly recommend you check it out. Again, go over to newcalm.com. That's NUCALM. And once you sign up, use the code Luke. Let's talk about heat issues, because going back to that original latex mattress that was, it's like sleeping on stone. Then I added the memory foam thing, and then I would have massive problems with overheating, like night sweats. I find like synthetic memory foam cooks me like I'm in a frying pan. Why is that, and how do you fix that? Or how have you fixed that? Because I don't experience that with whatever secret sauce you did. I don't get hot like that.
So memory foam is basically a foam version of plastics. So it's as if you'd be sleeping in saran wrap. And even if you fill that saran wrap with a whole bunch of holes, like the people trying to have ventilated, pierce some holes into their memory foam, put some holes into saran wrap, wrap yourself under it, you're still sweating. So it's not going to do anything for you. So There's 2 things. One is because they're plastics and they're non-breathable, and they're not allowing your body heat to escape. but they require your body heat to mold to yourself. They're all heat activated foams. So without your body heat, they won't function properly. But it also leads to overheating in bed is not just a comfort issue because of, you'll be sweating, you're hot. You're actually staying awake, because what ends up happening is you're speeding up your central nervous system, and it keeps you in the awakened stages. We're all tied into this circadian rhythm, and if you're going to be as hot as it is at high noon, your body will be thinking it's daytime and time to be awake. Our bodies are designed in a way that as we're cooling off, and basically sundown, sunset, and overnight, our central nervous system is slowing down, and it keeps you in that stage. And we did a whole lot of testing. We do a lot of double-blind studies. We mainly work with athletes over the last 10 years, which has been fantastic because they're really in touch with their bodies. But with the wearables and all that, we were able to really identify so much when it comes to thermoregulation, is that just sleeping cold or sleeping hot, that's not what it is. That's actually not what it's about. It's about following that natural flow of the circadian rhythm. So we realize that it's allowing your body heat to escape, and the more rapidly we allow that to happen through the course of the target sleep, whether you're sleeping 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, but if you're constantly dropping in temperature, that doesn't have to be immediately cold. If you're actually dropping in temperature, your body is identifying that as time to sleep. It continues to operate slowly, and it basically keeps you in deep sleep longer, keeps you in REM sleep longer. So you're constantly repairing your body and mind a lot faster. And that was the kind of the connection I wanted to make, is how do we heal faster? How do we wake up without anxiety, without stress, with that focus and clarity to thrive? And it all happens through REM sleep and deep sleep. The whole thing of 8 hours of sleep is really a myth. It's all about how much REM sleep and deep sleep. So if you're going to sleep 5 hours on Essentia, but we got 3 hours of deep REM sleep and deep sleep, it's equivalent to you being in bed for 8 hours with the same 3 hours of REM sleep and deep sleep. And that thermoregulation is a key part of that. There's others. The non-toxic part is important. The thermoregulation, those are the two, that's 1 and 2. Those are the two most important things to keep you in deep sleep longer. But then there's EMFs, so we talk about, there's pain management, there's a lot of things that come into it, but those are probably my number 1 and number 2. So
the temperature regulation is really interesting, because I think it was many years that my sleep suffered from overheating, and I didn't even know that's what it was. Mm-hmm. Until I fixed it. Like before I had an Essentia, I had, the chili pad, when the chili pad came out, and I was like, what the hell? All of a sudden I'm like sleeping great and I wouldn't wake up, throughout the night like I used to. And then over time I realized if I would travel and I didn't have that, I would sleep like shit. And then I started to identify that it was the overheating that was actually, if not totally waking me up, just kind of, like you said, just being in that light sleep, right? Exactly, not in REM, not in deep sleep. And then I started thinking about, because I always think about, how we got here through the evolution of time. And before humans invented beds, we'd be sleeping close to the ground, on the ground, maybe on some animal skins or whatever it was. But that, anyone that goes camping and does outdoor stuff, if you're sleeping with very little padding between you and the ground sucks the heat out of your body. And people get hypothermia and stuff from that, right? So I started to piece that together and go, oh, this is why your body likes it. Because for thousands of years, humans lay on the ground gets colder after the sun goes down, and it signals, like you said, it's time to go to sleep.
And just think about non-climate controlled environments, right? We're in climate controlled environments, so we're keeping a constant temperature 24/7. But at the same time, those are not the natural conditions. So what are the natural conditions? What we've realized is within these climate control areas is just allowing your body heat to escape as it should at night, because your body naturally wants to do that, needs to do that, so that it gets into the stages of recovery, for cellular recovery of all kinds in the body. So it knows what to do. Our bodies know what to do. I remember one doctor was talking, is our least intelligent part of our bodies are our minds, because it's the only thing that has doubt and questions itself. If you scratch yourself, your body knows to send the blood over to heal itself and all that. But everything that we control with our mind is filled with doubt.
That's true. That's true.
So
I think that's why, physical healing is much more automatic than emotional healing, right? Like if you have emotional wounds, they don't just disappear over time. Like you have to use your mind to consciously find a way to address them.
And can you imagine that sleep is so important to emotional well-being as well? Just because sleeping well will give you that clarity, that focus, that calmness to be able to make those right decisions, right? And and I'm sure we've all experienced it. When you have lack of sleep, you have poor judgment, doubt, stress, all those things. It's incredible because sometimes when we repeat this, it sounds crazy to be saying that sleep is so important. It's obvious, but it really touches every single part of our wellness.
100%. For me, it didn't start to hit until I got a bit older. In my teens, 20s, even 30s, I go out partying all night. People would tell me, you shouldn't do that. You should sleep. I said, you're crazy. I'll sleep when I die. And maybe like after 40, I started to realize like, wow, I'm really irritable today. I got brain fog. I can't think. What changed? And I go trace it back to my sleep. And now, I'm just, anyone that knows me knows I'm freaking obsessive about not the quantity necessarily, as you said, but the quality of sleep.
It's an interesting thing when I look at reverting back to some athletes. Very few athletes that I work with are really young, but I do work with them. And the ones that come to us that are 18, 19, 20, they're actually superstars because they're thinking about all these little details almost at a preventative nature and always wanting to thrive. And I almost see the difference of the top 5 superstars in any sport will be thinking of this at a very young age. The top 25 a little bit later. And then the kind of, in the whole hockey world, the fourth liners, they start to think about in their 30s when their career looks like it may be coming to an end.
Right.
But it's just an interesting thing. I think me and you are both late bloomers when it comes to that. We've too much cigar smoking early on.
What about things like dust mites and mold and, the creepy crawlies and things like that? I haven't looked into it too deeply, but I know, I've heard things about how, some materials are more prone to mold, and also this dust mite issue where if you're using, a wool-based comforter that has a lot of the lanolin oil in it, it'll, stop dust mites and stuff like that from reproducing. And I haven't looked too deeply into it, but maybe talk to me about bugs and mold.
Well, the generally speaking, because that's a huge issue as well, is the main thing about when it comes to the dust mites is really allergens more than the idea of sleeping with bugs, which really shouldn't be a big deal other than the fact that they're feces and corpses, because they're constantly dying off and staying in the batting of the bed. Those trigger allergic reactions. Whether you're sensing it or not, you're giving your body one more thing to fight off, which is a reaction to protecting itself from it. People that have overreactions will have respiratory issues and hives, but the 75% of us that don't are still battling something, which means you're keeping your central nervous system a little more active. When it comes to dust mites, you don't want to have any batting on the bed. The batting is that fiber portion that they have on top. So conventional beds are polyester. Organic beds will have wool or cotton batting. Now, the wool batting has an advantage over others because of the lanolin, but the lanolin doesn't last forever. It does dry out. And one of the big struggles with what you should be doing back in the day, when previous generations, going way back, would have wool padding on top, what they would do is they would remove it, they would wash it. They would wash it seasonally. Beds are not made that way anymore. If you're buying a bed that has wool on a surface on it, it's there forever for the life of the mattress. It's not detachable. It's not washable. You can't be taking care of it that way. So ultimately, you want to eliminate all fiber from the surface of the bed. And that's because ultimately that fiber, whether it's immediate, like a regular polyester or cotton, or a little bit later down the line, which is resistant a little bit in the early days with wool, ultimately they become nesting grounds for dust mites. If you don't have that, latex is perfect because they can't burrow through it. It's not an ideal nesting grounds, and they just stay away from that. So it's not attracting it.
Wow.
We have a little bit of a, as a company, we're not just organic, and we're not just selling to people in the know and walk our walk and all that. We actually also work institutionally. So everything we do has to be evidence-based backed. We do some work with the military. We do some work with institutional. We do things with professional sports teams, which we need to pass through the vetting process. So we had all this tested out years ago with Johns Hopkins, and they really did the whole analysis of our latex and why this was ultimately the best choice to avoid any dust mites and any allergens, including if a latex is not properly processed, you'll still get the latex in the proteins, and that can trigger other allergies as well. But we make sure that the proteins have been eliminated in the processing. So there's important stages that you need to go through when you're making a product that you want to have zero stimulants to obstruct sleep.
What about mold?
Mold is more recent issue that I addressed over the last year and a half, actually.
Is that because you moved to Florida?
Should be.
I never heard of mold until I moved to Texas. That it's like every other person's like, oh, we're mold sick. We got to move out of our house. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I mean, I'm sure it exists other places, but it seems Texas and Florida are very prone to it because of the humidity.
This was a very different experience for me. First of all, latex already is less attractive for mold growth than polyurethane. But I guess it's been about a year and a half now that I was part of a committee that was invited to be part of a committee just to understand some of the issues that the military has in different sites around the world, different environments, where sleeping environments for soldiers may not be healthy for them. And one of the things that came out was potentially mold. So as I was sitting on this panel and listening to the issues, I realized, well, what can we do about it in an organic environment? So I got to work on that, and I had realized we use essential oils in our foam, and if I just shifted over to higher acidity essential oils, more in the citric family of essential oils, that higher acidity was even more effective than our regular latex formula to resisting mold. So now mold is not something that grows from the inside out. It's something from the outside that attaches on in. So there's nothing you can really do that eliminates it completely, because if it's there, but if you can stop it from multiplying through that acidity, that it's not growing and it's not completely taking over the space or the product, that's something that I was able to realize. And I think it was, how long has it been now? I feel it's been 8 months now that every single piece of latex that we formulate now we've shifted everything to a high acidity essential oil. And so everything has become more resistant to mold, which is huge, like you said, in Florida, but we've also been selling this for military use as well, which has been phenomenal.
Wow. Yeah. Cool. Let's talk about EMF. So I mentioned, these metal coils, which every time I travel and, stay in a hotel, it's on a 10th floor or something, I just think, man, I'm like right across from the cell towers, And you're probably old enough to remember this, but those younger people won't. But back in the day as a kid, before you had a cable TV, you'd have antennas on top, right? And then if you couldn't get a signal, you go to the kitchen, you get some aluminum foil, and you basically like extend the the length or basically the like surface area of your antenna, and then you could get your your extra channels to come in.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So
I'm just kidding.
So I get the concept that like metal attracts radio waves, right? And then when I started, looking into the mattress stuff and also just EMF awareness, because I'm just an EMF freaking fanatic, as you know, I started thinking about the mattress and having all these coils. It's not just that there's metal in there, but they're corkscrews, right? They're like perfectly shaped to be conductive and to pick up RF in the environment. I don't know about electric fields like coming out of your wall or not, but what have you learned, if anything, about that particular aspect of having a bunch of metal under you?
So
is my paranoia validated in any way?
The thing is, yes and no. The reason I'll say is that what these coils can do is almost create a coning effect, a spiraling effect, but not so much because that's happening. That's going downwards, not as much of the frequencies are coming upwards. So if it was coming upwards, then you'd get that coning going through your body as well. So you can have a little bit of that. But the reality is today's EMF issues have a lot more to do with wireless technologies, 4G, 5G, and everything. Everyone's streaming. And if it's not you, it's your neighbor. There's towers everywhere. And that information doesn't come in it comes in a very erratic way. It comes from all sides. So there's not a direct link from the cell tower to your phone. It comes in every single direction, because if you move, wherever you move your phone, it gets a signal. So that signal has to be everywhere. So that being the case, what we've been able to identify is what it does to your body. And we were able to see that on your blood cell behavior, when you're exposed to this erratic behavior of signals, your cells seem to clutter together. It almost looks like they're like little caterpillars of cells rather than properly dispersed cells. So the theory there is that by creating these kind of caterpillars of cells, you're preventing your oxygen from flowing as freely as it normally should. And if you're obstructing that, well, you're obstructing the repair and healing that the body needs to do of itself. So how we countered that, because over the years we looked at so many technologies like grounding sheets and grounding technologies, again, it's outdated because it still allows this erratic behavior to go through you, and it doesn't stop that blood cell behavior from happening. So ultimately, we realized that our bodies need an organic flow, that organic, non-chaotic flow. But we also realized that cell phone signals and all these streaming signals, they can exist in our organic flow. They don't need to be erratic. So what we've done is added quartz, an informed quartz, to our latex. That informed quartz becomes a dominant low-level wave. And when the cell signals come in, instead of coming in an erratic way, they follow the organic flow. Our body's flow is not strong enough to overcome that erratic behavior, but the quartz in high enough concentration is. So what we've seen is that with our quartz in our latex foam, it does not have any effect on the blood flow. In fact, it's even more dispersed than it normally is. So it gives perfect flow for oxygen and all that. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So that's pretty wild, actually.
So are you just like pulverizing quartz into a powder and mixing it into
crushing it into a really, really fine powder, almost like a flour. That's how thin it is.
It's so interesting because, many people are fans of crystals, my wife, I would say she's not as obsessed as some people are, but there's a few around the house, and I've always thought they were pretty, but I've never had conclusive evidence that they have, any kind of magical powers. Mm-hmm. But I find them interesting because they're beautiful and that they grow. That's pretty weird. Like rocks don't grow. You know what I mean? So there's something to them. And I keep a big quartz crystal in front of my computer monitor. I don't know. Looks pretty. I like it. Mm-hmm. But this might be the first conclusive evidence that I've heard that it's actually doing something.
It's actually doing something. And it has to be, it specifically has to be crushed in such a fine powder to have a really high density and to hold basically a scalar signal that is overpowering and not creating any negative or any harm, but becoming that organic wave that we need to exist in.
That's so interesting. So there's like a coherence in the field that is being created.
Correct. Exactly.
Wow. And what kind of testing have you guys done to validate this?
Blood testing. Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically dark microscopy testing of blood cells. And we've had basically different genders, with men, women of different ages. And we've tested it over and over again to see if the results were consistent. And the results have been consistent all the way through. Blood cell behavior from just general to during downloads and streaming of phone calls and movies and all that.
Oh, so you you increase the EMF in the environment?
And then basically with the presence of our mattress, and see how the blood cells behave there. And in every single case, it was the same over and over.
That's so cool. Years ago, I think it was around 2009 or so, I was at one of these health trade shows, and I used to love going to those things. I mean, I've hung out with you guys at your booth. So I just go meet all these inventors and stuff like that. And I went to one booth of this company called Magnetico. There's this guy, he's since passed, a really brilliant guy named Dr. Dean Bonley. And he invented these unipolar mattress pads. They weigh like a freaking ton. But basically they go one direction, right? So rather than like a magnet that, has two poles, it has one pole. And so the idea is that you sleep on that and you're mimicking the magnetism of the ground that has diminished over time for whatever reason. So he's got these mattress pads, and you can get one that's like 10 Gauss, or you can stack them 20 Gauss and so on. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. That makes sense. Like grounding, right? I'm always thinking about, well, how did things used to be and how can we kind of recreate that to be optimal? So I look at them, they're like a couple grand. And again, back at that time, I was like, oh, that must be nice, but maybe I could lay on it. And so what they were doing is they were doing the live blood cell analysis, and they'd have you lay on it. It was on like a massage table. You lay on it they'd draw your blood, you'd lay on it for 10 minutes, they'd draw your blood again and look at it under the microscope. And I'll be damned, I put one on my credit card right on the spot. And I've been sleeping on it ever since, because, it was like seeing is believing. There could be placebo there, I guess, but I didn't know. There was no expectation of what the result would be. They're like, they just took some blood and they're like, it's cool, you'll see afterwards. So I didn't know what I was supposed to see, but here's sample A, here's sample B. And I was like, dude, I laid on that thing for 10 minutes. I didn't feel anything,
Well, ours were blind tests. So the subjects had no clue. So they had no expectation. Right. So they couldn't be in their minds, and they couldn't alter their blood cell behavior, which maybe is possible, but I don't think so. But they had no knowledge of it, so they couldn't.
That's so interesting.
This is one of those segments, though, that it's interesting because I guess it's been already, I'd say 6-7 years since we've introduced this EMF protection. Initially was for the athletes, because a lot of the athletes, early on, I tell them, don't sleep with your cell phones. Don't be streaming in the bedroom. Try to keep the bedroom into this healthy sanctuary. And I realized that's the one thing they didn't want to do. Reason being, one player had told me, he goes, I've been away from home since I've been 15 years old, prep schools, and then going to college. And he's been away from his childhood friends and family from the beginning. The only thing keeping them connected are those phones. So I get it, right? So that's what was driving me to figure out what the solution can be for these athletes. And then when I launched this, the athletes all got on board with this, but for the general consumer, this is a little weird. It's a topic, but I've noticed that that's been changing as well. People are a lot more open to understanding that EMFs are definitely making an impact on us, and so it's been gratifying to see that. We've been a little more accepted in the mainstream side.
I'm hoping it's only going to grow, in awareness. I'm glad people are talking about Fruit Loops and stuff, but I'm like, dude, how many people have their phone on, under their pillow or next to their pillow, or have a Wi-Fi router in the room or in their baby's nursery, and they're just like, they have no idea. That's why I'm always talking about it. I know people that listen to this show are probably much more savvy on that. But I see, you go to the grocery store, you'll see like a guy with his cell phone in his breast pocket, like your T-shirt right there, walking around with his phone on top of his heart.
Yeah.
I'm just like, whoa, I got to keep talking about this. People still don't know. It's really, really important. So the blood cell analysis thing is interesting because I didn't realize that your mattress was doing that, but I actually just got a new Magnetico that's under my Essentia now. So I wonder, my blood must be really moving because I have both of them now. But I want to go back to the grounding. This has been a topic of debate on the podcast and elsewhere in this realm. Grounding's always made sense to me, again, because that we've evolved to always be having our skin in contact with something conductive on the earth, right? With the exception of any animals that fly, every other living being is grounded 24/7 the entire time they're on earth.
Yep.
Like, think about it. Anything aquatic, all fish, reptiles, amphibians, all mammals, everything is always grounded. So it seems like God designed us to be connected to the earth. A few years ago, our dumbasses made rubber-soled shoes, and we sleep in a house and we're disconnected from the ground. So grounding has always made sense to me, and I've been doing it for ages. But the thing I realized is, I used to see these videos of people, with grounding mats at their computer or sitting on their bed, and they'd have a skin voltage meter, right, to test the AC current running through the body. And so say you're sitting in front of your computer and you're not grounded, you test your skin voltage, it's off the charts. Like, you got all this electric field running through your body. And then you touch the grounding pad, whoosh, it goes back to zero. And I'm like, I'm sold. I'm be grounded everywhere, right? And I started doing that at my computer, grounding my bed. And as I started interviewing experts on EMF and physicists and, people smarter than me, they said, well, the reason that the voltage meter goes down to zero is because your body is now the conduit.
Exactly, yeah.
So you're sucking the AC current, the 60 hertz, out of the wall, the drywall behind your bed, or from your computer. It's hitting you, using you as the ground because you're touching the...
You're channeling it.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's probably not good. So I don't know which is worse. Like, kind of the currents getting kind of hitting your body and stuck in there is better, or just allowing it to go through. I haven't had a conclusive answer on that, but my current understanding of grounding and what I practice is I only ground when I'm in an area that's shielded from electric currents.
Okay.
So like our bedrooms are Faraday, so I sleep with a grounding sheet on there because there's no electric current. I hit a kill switch every night. The room's dead. My office, everything's like shielded off, the computer wires and stuff. So I have a little grounding mat there. I'm still a little apprehensive about grounding when you're next to an electric field. Do you have any insights on that? Or?
Well, I guess first of all, when it comes to grounding, there's not really strong, conclusive evidence of whether it's good or bad. So that's one of those problems where there's not blood work. There's nothing that we can approach on a real evidence-based side of it and say conclusively this is right or wrong or not. The other hand, when you look at our bodies need power. It's always that untold part of our bodies that energy, that spark, what keeps our heart going, what keeps everything going.
We need electrons.
We need exactly,
which you get from grounding.
Exactly.
DC current.
So to me, what I feel for grounding is it feels good. When you're meditating, when you're practicing. So to me, if you're going to do some breath work, instead of just doing it on the couch, take off those shoes, go on the grass, and be connected to nature, be connected. I think it's got to do something right. I don't have conclusive evidence that it's good. I know when it comes to Wi-Fi signals, it's not doing much there.
Yeah.
But being connected to natural earth it feels good. So there's got to be something that we haven't figured out that's doing something right as far as grounding ourselves.
Yeah. The only real evidence I've seen is thermography, right? Where they take like a heat scan photo of your body and you'll see all this kind of inflammation, and then you go ground for 10 minutes and then it's not red anymore. Now you're all blue. There's a lot of that out there, which is pretty compelling. Yeah. And I mean, I'm barefoot in the yard all the time. I avoid wearing shoes whenever possible. Mm-hmm. And that always feels like just, intuitively, logically, like a good idea, especially when you're in the sun and you're getting that radiation. You have to kind of complete the current. I always feel weird
Something
when I'm
calming about it, right?
Yeah, I did it before you got here. I was sitting out in my side yard, buck naked, just sitting in the sun with my feet on the wet ground. It's like, okay, I'm ready to podcast now. But there's something that feels weird to me about being in the sun, like wearing rubber shoes and not being grounded. To me, again, this is just, I could be totally wrong. It feels like the circuit of that solar radiation is not being completed. It feels like it's like stuck in my body. When I'm grounded, I feel the energy from the sun
flowing through.
It's creating a circuit. Yeah. I don't know how you explain that scientifically. Again, it's just like a gut feeling thing. And, just like, wow, this is what animals do, right? So anyway, I'm always thinking of just like maximize. You make an awesome mattress, but I'm like, well, now I could add the magnet and then the grounding.
Why not? Absolutely.
Chili pad. It's like I want to do 50 things because
overdoing wellness is not a problem.
I mean, if you're wired like me, I just want to try everything. And it's like, well, if these 3 things are good and we've proven that they're good and they feel right, then I'm going to stack all 3 things. You know. But I don't think everyone has to do that to be happy and healthy. But I just choose to do so for whatever reason. If you haven't noticed in the past 4 years that Big Pharma doesn't have an interest in promoting health, then you're not listening to podcasts like this one. When it comes to real wellness, sometimes traditional interventions are still the best. That's why I've been a fan of this company Shen Blossom for years. With a deep respect for nature, Shen Blossom is committed to your health, providing some of the most innovative and skillfully crafted herbal extract and traditional foods that are typically not available to the general public. They offer traditional sake extracts, Japanese skincare products, and one-of-a-kind herbal formulas. One of my favorites that I've been using for years is their green MSM. And since MSM enhances the absorption of other nutrients, they got the genius idea to add a broad spectrum of greens from plants and sea vegetables, plus tonic and purifying herbs. I've never found anything quite like it. You'll find all that and much more at shenblossom.com, and make sure to use the code Luke to save 10% off. That's SHENBLOSSOM, shenblossom.com. Oh, and don't forget their delicious food, too. I am crazy about their nori sprinkle and toasted sesame oil. Honestly, you have to taste it to really appreciate how much richer and flavorful it is than the oil you're used to from the store. So again, that's shenblossom.com, and your code is Luke. Tell me about how I always want to like go to your factory. I want to see like the big vats of latex and the essential oil injection needle, however it works. Mm-hmm. How did you start to work out kind of the actual manufacturing?
It started pretty basic. The very first one was almost like a kitchen. We actually had what would be a mixer that you would have in the kitchen. So we used to blend in a mixer, and if you figure, we were pouring about 150 pounds of liquid that we would froth up. And then by hand, we were dropping these into molds and then curing them. So the very infancy when I started Essentia, this was very primitive, but we were getting it done just to try to develop this one product that didn't exist right now at that time. But then we made our first major investment was redesigning a machine that was normally done for plastics and all that, and re-engineering the whole thing to work with organic products that wasn't burning the organic products and through the processing. So adding in cooling elements inside this so we can do a high velocity mix and injection into our molds, which eventually we were doing those by hand, and from the injection heads to eventually a robot arm that was able to properly disperse the latex in a mold for to go to baking and curing, and it's still how it's made today. With some of the exciting news that we have going on is we're working on our first American factory. Right now, everything's manufactured at my original factory just outside of Montreal, and now we're working on building a Boca factory in Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's
so you'll be next to your home.
Yeah, long time in the works for there. Ever since I relocated 10 years ago, I've always wanted to launch a factory here, and you know, I think we're at the point where our growth is supporting it, and we have a lot of interesting things going on. So and this one will be taking that automation to the next level for quality control, and from weight to ILD to everything about it, RFID tagging to know that every single component is right for the full tracking, and you know, everything we do is also tracked from farm to bed, to make sure where we sourced every ingredient from, make sure that everything was fair trade and everything is organic through the hands of custody from all suppliers. So it's a pretty incredible process. Like, we've come a long way from doing our best to figure it out to now auditing every supply in our supply chain to make sure that it's done all the way through.
Where do the trees grow that produce the best latex?
Well, the best latex is the latex. I mean, we choose to buy typically from Sri Lanka is one of the favorites we have. The main difference that I find from different harvests is not so much in the quality of the latex, but it's natural, right? This is an organic product. There's some latex crops from certain countries that I find have a more pungent odor to it, and it's still natural, it's still organic, but it has too much of a latex odor to it. So a lot of the selections I have, and sometimes we blend from different countries as well, the sap, is ultimately trying to keep this as as odor neutral as possible. And we do so also with our essential oils. Our essential oils are not put in for aromatherapy in the beds. If we did our job right, you can't tell what that aroma is.
I've never smelled it.
So it's exactly.
Your mattresses don't smell like anything.
And that's the point. They're not supposed to, right?
Because the latex smell is a little funky.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not super sensitive to smells, but I have noticed it in the past.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we want to try to make sure we're buying the organic batches that don't have that. And it's like anything else. If you're buying honey from one farm or another farm, depending on the soil, depending on neighboring crops, it can have a different flavor altogether, right? It's the same thing with latex. If you're not choosing what I choose to be a odor neutral one, you want to make sure that the crops haven't picked up something in the soil that is giving that funk.
If every mattress manufacturer in the world switched to natural latex, would there be enough latex trees to support that? How fast do they grow? Are they renewable, or are we talking like, you know, an oak tree that takes 100 years to grow before you can make a board out of it?
No. It's nothing close to an oak tree. The question is, it depends how fast that transition has to happen. As of now, that would be a problem for everyone to transition to latex. But if we're talking about a transition that will happen over the next 15 years, then easily we can because the lifespan of the trees are long. They're constantly producing, so you don't need to plant new trees. You need to just plant those original trees and be able to harvest them. And like anything that's farming, every tree needs its break. So it has a season where it's not being tapped and not being harvested. Give it a chance to re-strengthen and rebuild again.
So it's kind of management. So it's kind of like maple syrup. So
exactly,
we're not having to go and like chop down a forest of latex trees. You just have to incrementally and seasonally extract and give them time to recover.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I was picturing you'd have to like chop them all down to get the latex out. Okay, cool. Yeah. Cool. So is my idea of like tree blood, is that somewhat accurate?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't think.
I mean, it's like a white goo.
I wouldn't think that the maple syrup industry would want to call it maple blood.
True.
Because that's kind of the same thing. It's and it's harvested almost the same thing. The maple syrup is tapped in, whereas the tree is really between the bark and the solid part. And you see that in different plants. So here, what we're doing is we're cutting the bark, and it'll start to, I guess, bleed. You're right. From that. So it's not coming from the core of the tree. It's coming from the skin of the tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just within the skin of the tree.
Got it. So as I said earlier, when I first found you guys, it was like way out of my price range as a broke musician or whatever I was at the time. But in recent years, as I said, all these other companies have propped up, and I get messages from people all the time. Like, I know you like Essentia, but how's this other one and this brand and that brand? And I just said, well, hey, if you get what you can afford, and any like healthy mattress, even if it's greenwashing, is going to be a step up above, your Sealy mattress depot down the street or whatever, you know what I mean? That's just totally toxic. But last time we spoke, you talked about, I addressed this problem with you. I'm like, dude, you're like the Rolls Royce, and what do the people in between do? And you were talking about launching, like more of entry level that were affordable. How many kind of tiers do you guys have right now?
Yeah, I've actually taken a lot of pride in that, where even in our most premium product, when we look at our athletes, that for them it equals contract signing. So for them, price is not a consequence. We're still a very inexpensive mattress for them, because they'll spend $10,000 with us, whereas they're being constantly solicited for a $25,000, $35,000 mattress. But that being the far out of it, my focus is always to make it attainable. I want wellness to be attainable for everyone. So we have products right now that basically are under $2,000. So we are in the mix, and we're proud to be there, because I want to make it attainable, especially with us working with military over the last year. Our volume has increased substantially. A new factory is fully automated to be able to produce many of these. So we really are competitive, but we're also competitive because you're buying from the source. No other mattress you're really buying from the source who produces the latex and makes a finished mattress, and you buy it from our website. It's direct to consumer. If our product had to go through the many hands that a normal mattress, we'd probably be triple the price that they are. So a mattress that you can get for, let's say, $1,600 from us would probably be close to $4,000. If you look at how many hands this goes, so if you're a regular mattress manufacturer right now, is an organic one even, is buying the latex from a latex producer, is buying the cover, they're assembling it together, and most of them are then selling it to a reseller.
Oh, so it's like a white label kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So most of the brands out there, even the big brands you see online, they actually don't make the product. They're buying it from a white label producer who's buying the components from component manufacturers. So it goes through many hands before it gets to the consumer.
There's a lot of middlemen in there.
And that's where the coil comes in. It's so inexpensive to get a coil, and it becomes that filler in a mattress. So a mattress that has coils in it shouldn't be over $2,000. That's all misspent on whether it be marketing or whatever it is. All of our mattresses, whether we go to entry level to our top athletic performance mattresses, they're all full latex all the way through. So it's a full latex core. And when the thing is, we don't make a bad mattress. So my entry-level mattress is an award-winning, best-performing foam mattress, recognized for years as that, just because I don't make a bad mattress just to say I made a lower price point. I'm just, how do I move the needle on performance? And that's what I'm interested in. At the very least, every single one of my mattresses need to be certified organic, need to be durable and long-lasting, need to be hypoallergenic, so you're not going to get dust mites, you're not going to get protein allergen. That's a baseline for Essentia. And then after that, we increase the capacity of the pressure redistribution, we increase the spinal support. So we're adding on to it. But when our starting point is kind of like the top end point for most brands.
Thank you for doing that. I'm glad, because it sucks when I talk about really great things on the show. I'm like, someone listening is like, yeah, that's good for you, but I can't afford that, because I get it. Like I've said multiple times here, man. I mean, it's like, I'm 50. What am I? 54. I just turned 54. And it's like, I mean, most of my life, I couldn't afford any of the things that I, enjoy now, in terms of wellness and things like that. But also, I was a guy that, I wasn't buying Porsches. When I did have money, I'd buy the $1,000 mattress, which maybe in the year 2000 was still a lot of money.
Yep.
And it was a lot of money for me, but that just happens to be where I like to, invest my resources, because I just want to feel as good as possible for as long as possible while I'm here.
It goes back to my Uber drive here. And it's a shame where we say that wellness is a luxury, and it shouldn't be. But I think more people's mindset are accepting that there is some value to add on to make an investment, because that investment in your wellness trickles into everything: your overall happiness, your effectiveness, your ability to work well and have great relationships. It's all, if you can't be well, you can't thrive in any of those environments.
Oh, totally. Yeah. If I'm ever sick, I'm like a complete asshole. I'm generally a pretty chill guy, but if I don't feel well, I mean, man, it's, you're going to know.
That's a man thing, though.
You're going to know. Yeah.
We don't perform as well when we're under the weather.
I get cranky, man. I get cranky. All right. I want to let people know, that are fired up by this conversation. We've got, always look at my notes. Yeah, we got a discount for everyone listening. LukeStorey.com/Essentia, and the code Luke gets you $100 off. I recently signed up for this subscription service called Quantum Upgrade, and it's been a major game changer for my energy, EMF resilience, and the overall feeling in our home. Let me explain how it works. Quantum energy is the energy that supports all life in the universe. It's nonlinear, non-local, and has an immense potential for health when it's harnessed and directed to you or into your living environment. Through many years of research and development, Quantum Upgrade created one of the world's most potent sources of usable quantum energy. So when you sign up for their service, Quantum Upgrade associates your home, car, phone, business, and even your pet with this energy. The energy you receive with the Quantum Upgrade is a high consciousness field that you can even customize on the fly. For example, I like to set different booster levels at specific times, such as before a podcast recording or during sleep. It's pretty awesome. The Quantum Upgrade energy streaming service has already been studied and tested by independent institutes, doctors, and labs with phenomenal results in placebo-controlled double-blind studies. It's been shown to improve red and white blood cells and even reverse stages 1 and 2 of blood clotting in only a few minutes. You can try it right now risk-free with a 15-day free trial by visiting quantumupgrade.io. All you got to do is use the code Luke15 to activate your free trial. Again, you'll find it at quantumupgrade.io. But there's more. I want to talk to you about more. Tell me about, any of the other kind of research and product development you've done. I know you mentioned a couple of things you've done with the, testing people's, before and after blood with the quartz infused, latex and all that. Any other interesting kind of studies you've done with the athletes or anything?
I think the most exciting one has been my athlete one. I think it's going back, that was 2 years ago. We did a double-blind study with 75 pro athletes, and here we really wanted to tap in on what's the real impact we're having on REM sleep and deep sleep. So it was a 10-week study. So, I mean, we were all in, they were all in participating. They all thought they were on Essentia mattresses, which is the beauty of it. And I always love that because, one, they know they're being tested. So they were in their best behavior, and you can tell, but that only lasts a week. Eventually, everyone goes back to their old habits, right? So you can see the first week how things were going well, and then things kind of fell apart after week 1. But they do it whether they were on the Essentia or the other product, their habits adjusted to their norm. So after 10 weeks, we were able to, they were all wearing wearables, and we were able to track their sleep. And the Essentia sleeper had minimum of 20% and up to 60% improvement in REM sleep and deep sleep. So those are huge, huge numbers.
Wow.
I wasn't even anticipating that kind of number, because you know what? For an athlete, if I can tell him that I can improve it by 1% or 5% or 10%, sold. When I was able to say 20 to 60%, and that kind of explained where I have some guys that they, we got them from 5 hours of sleep to 5.5 hours of sleep, and we weren't hitting those 6 to 8 hours. And, that could be frustrating when you're you want to be dependent on getting the right sleep. But then we shifted towards this thing of it doesn't really make a difference. Are you getting your REM? Are you getting your deep sleep? And if you're getting those, it's irrelevant if you get it over 5 hours, the proper amount, or 5.5 or 6 or 7 or 8. So that's what we realized, that's a myth. 8 hours of sleep is a myth. It's the deep and REM sleep that makes a difference. And by increasing that by 20 to 60%, well, that's a game changer, because now you actually don't need 8 hours of sleep anymore, because you're achieving it in 6. And if you're there for 8, it's all good. You're just chill and relax. But ultimately, we've got your body really recovering at a pace that's never been done before. And that's what's really key. That's what sleep is about.
That's epic. It's taken me a while to get over that brainwashing about the 8 hours, because I've tracked my sleep forever.
Yeah.
I got this thing I was telling you about earlier called the Soul Tech. It's a magnetic conditioner, right? You put it at the foot of your bed. It's got a wristband wearable that syncs to it, and basically it responds in real time to your sleep. And this magnetic field, like a healthy magnetic field, to be clear, not like bad magnetic field from an EMF. Basically, the conditioner speaks to what it's getting from your wearable. And the research on this thing is bananas. So I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to try it. And I grilled them on the EMF, and it turns out, I think if you add up the total pings of the Bluetooth during the night, it equals 1 second total. I was like, all right, I'm good with that. But anyway, moral of the story is I started using that, and I'm tracking my deep sleep, and I'm like, holy crap, my deep sleep is really going up. But then I started, and it didn't really affect my REM, but definitely deep sleep. Okay. Maybe, I don't know, almost doubled it. I'm getting, 3 hours where I used to get 1.5 hours or something. But I started freaking out because I'm only sleeping 6.5, 7 hours. I could never get like 8 or 9 hours sleep like I thought I needed. And then I started noticing, I feel refreshed though.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have hella energy when I wake up and all through the day, but it's taken me time to kind of like undo that belief that I need, it's the number of hours. And to your point, I can confirm from experience, it really is about the sleep architecture more so than the duration.
Also, I would say, I don't know if you're looking at your results daily and all that, but you really shouldn't. You really need to look at it more as where you're trending over 10 days and not night over night, because there's a lot of things from something as basic as the sensor not picking up everything accurately to, whatever you've eaten in a day, the stress or anxieties of the day. But you want to know how you're trending over a period of time. And if it's something of concern, or if things are healthy, or you're getting your REM and your deep, those are important. And everyone's different. Just because these wearables, not every person is as well tuned with them, because maybe the signal is too deep beyond the flesh of one person's physical makeup. So these wearables may not always be perfectly aligned with measuring what you have. True. But if you're feeling great and you're only getting your 6.5 hours, you're getting it done, which is fantastic. So even if it's telling you it's at 1.5 hours, it's likely at 2. Like you're getting more.
I agree with looking at the longer term trends though, because there is kind of a nocebo thing I've noticed when I first got my first Oura Ring years ago. It's like I would look at it every morning and I go, 5.5 hours, and I only got 30 minutes of REM.
Yeah,
and I think I would make myself tired because I would hold the belief that I got a bad night's sleep, right? And I thought, I think I'm like tricking myself into feeling shittier than I need to. So then I, would only check it once a week or something like that. But what I like to see is when you look at the year, like that Soul Tech thing, I've been using it, I think about a year, and you see my deep sleep is just like hockey stick, man. It's amazing. So I go, okay, cool, I'm sold. I don't need to look at it every single day and like psych myself out, because there are going to be nights where, I don't know, it's a full moon or something, you get a bad night, and you might have done everything right. It's just the energetics of the planet are kind of stimulating you,
But then it gets in your head. I had a strength and conditioning coach that would, insist to his players not to be reading it, because an athlete would read that he had a bad night's sleep, then be concerned that he wouldn't play well, and ultimately wouldn't play well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You can psych yourself out.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's like, it's kind of a double-edged sword with all of this tracking stuff in the wearables, because the mind is so powerful. I mean, imagine like someone rigged your sleep tracker and it said you got 4 hours of deep sleep, 3 hours of REM sleep, and you slept 10 hours total, like you'd wake up feeling like a rock star, even if it was lying to you, right? Just because you believe so deeply that you should feel energized and well rested.
Mind is powerful.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
just like with the fake Cuban cigar I told you about earlier.
You go.
I was like, this tastes delicious. He's like, dude, that's a $10 Nicaraguan. I just fooled you. All right, dude. Well, I think we nailed it, man. Thank you for coming back on the show, and thank you for doing something right. I love talking to founders and CEOs and creators that walk the talk and have integrity and make high quality things that really help people. So I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for spreading the word. We really appreciate you and getting it out there. Thanks for having me here, though. This place is awesome. I appreciate being here in your home and all that. It's awesome.
Nice.
It's nice to see you here.
If you got to do work, why not do it at home?
Exactly. Yeah.
What before we get out of here, what do you guys have on the horizon? It seems like you're the kind of guy that has a lot of creative ideas and keeps pushing it down the road versus we have our 3 products, we're done, I'm going to sail off into the sunset. What would you like to tackle next, or what do you have in the works?
The issue there is that my team has to keep up with the constant changes, which it's sometimes exhausting for them. I feel bad at times because when I hone in on something that has real impact on wellness, I don't stop, and I keep drilling down into it until it becomes part of our product. Right now, I'm proud to say that our latest launch, which was not so long ago, was September 1st of this year, was our latest launch for our active formula foam. It's the best product we've ever made. And I say this with the ego that I can say that my product that I launched in 2006, no one else has even reached that, and I'm on my 8th version of this formula, this bed, and I do feel that the product we have now is by far the best we've ever made. I'm really proud of the team, really proud of what we've made, and I think I'm kind of on an R&D break. It won't last long. It never lasts long. But
Famous last words.
I feel like I'm on a break, and maybe it'll last through the holidays. I don't know. But right now, I'm just like a proud father, just sitting back, looking at it, saying, "Wow, we pushed it forward again." And if you ask somebody if we needed to change anything a year ago, the answer would have been no. We're great. 2 years ago, no, we make the best product. Yet we changed it again this year and made it better. So we're excited about that.
What do you think it is in your personality that drives you to continue to innovate when it's not really necessary in terms of, just running a successful, profitable business?
I don't know if it's curiosity or I don't know if it's obsession. I don't know if it's a combination of both. But as soon as I hear that there's an issue or a problem, like when I was, sat in on the talk about mold, I needed to understand it. And when I needed to understand it, and then when I come to certain realizations, then I'm no longer happy with my product. If my product doesn't have something that I've learned, it bothers me. So I have to now figure out how to make Essentia that much better, even though others would have said it didn't need changing, but not
as you're talking. I'm trying to think of something you haven't thought of. I'm like, there's got to be something. He's got the mold.
Don't do this to me.
You got the EMF, the mold, the dust mites, the off-gassing. There's no metal. It's comfortable as shit, but also supportive. I'm like, if I think of something, I'll let you know, and your team can blame me if I give you an idea. But yeah, I honestly can't think of any other missing
think of something. Give me a few
links,
months off on R&D, so I don't obsess for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I would say figuring out integrating grounding into it, but it sounds like the quartz crystal is having the same sort of effect based on the testing you did with the blood. So it's well, that would be redundant. Someone's already doing the magnets,
Correct. Yeah.
And that seems like a challenging business model because it probably costs as much to ship them as it does to make them. They're so freaking heavy.
We even had to patent the design for our beds. Like you notice here, we ship and assembled here to be able to get our
Yeah,
are
what's
extreme
up
weight.
with that? I was confused when FedEx showed up here a couple months ago, and I was like, we only ordered one mattress. What is this other thing? I thought it was maybe, you threw in a couple pillows or something, and then I was like, the delivery guys put it together and they unwrapped, the two boxes, and the top kind of pad zips onto the bottom, the thicker part of the mattress.
Well, so we do some really, I can say, like, crazy oversized beds. We have some celebrities that buy like 145 by 145 inch beds. They're just big monsters.
Oh.
And for the longest time, those needed to be in giant crates, and we'd ship them everywhere in these giant crates. It's thousands of dollars in transport charges, really hard on everyone building it. And so I guess it was a year and a half ago, I started trying to rethink this problem of transportation. And at the same time, I had models like the Procore, which was an oversized, overweight mattress. So I just came up with this design of how they can assemble and zipper together and finalize that. And now we're able to FedEx 145 inch by 145 inch celebrity mattress that we get going on, and it's easy to install and easy to put together, and easy for the guys in the factory to put together. So that's what it's about. That's why that was one more little obsession I had, a little problem to overcome. But yeah, not everyone knows that about us, but we make these things in any size at all. We ship them around the world, European sizes, but also oversized. And that's been a thing over the last few years.
7'8" basketball player or something.
I'd say yes, we do NBA players, and they have the oversized beds, but the biggest beds go to celebrities, not to pro athletes, which is kind of crazy. We have some people that
probably, because they have so many people in the bed at once.
It's called a family bed.
You didn't make any beds for P. Diddy, did you?
No, not
okay. I just want to clear that up. I hope not.
You didn't have any freak
Hope you're
models
running
there.
above board here. It's funny. I heard the other day, I think it was when, it was Donald Trump when he was on Joe Rogan. It was really interesting. He started telling the story about the first time he went into the White House or whatever. And there's Lincoln's bedroom, and Lincoln apparently was really tall, and so he had a custom-made mattress. I don't know how tall he was, but he was like, "Yeah, it's a giant-ass bed." I was like, "Oh, that's a cool idea." I'm 6'2", so I can fit on a normal king size, but yeah, that's funny.
But I've had some shorter customers request a giant bed, so it's not just. Again, I know there's a whole family thing where people are sleeping more and more, their children, their pets all together. Yeah. So there is a family bed concept. More of the standard sizes in oversized that we do are either 96 by 96 or 108 by 108. But then some big name people have come up with some major. And again, part of it, I wonder if big homes, big rooms, and a standard size mattress maybe looks out of place. How
do people find bedding for these like giant custom ones?
All custom bedding for it as well. Yes, yeah.
Wow, someone's living large.
Yeah.
I kind of, now that you say it, I kind of like the idea. I mean, a king's it's plenty big, but if the dog jumps on the bed, I mean, we don't have kids yet, but if they did, that would actually make sense. Yeah, especially people. Cool. I know people that have really big dogs, and like they're a couple, and like they're two big dogs sleeping in the bed. I'm like, where do you go? If this one is in the bed, and we used to have a cat too, he'd be up there. I mean, it's getting a little cramped with 4 beings there. So yeah, it actually makes sense. Has anyone requested any? Like I'm thinking of these, like Elvis and Liberace types that would like have a heart-shaped bed, or has anyone come in with like weird shapes? Or just different sizes?
Well, we do shapes mainly for yachts. So the shape of the boat and all that. So we do. Those are the only real odd shapes we make.
Okay.
We don't have many requests for more glitchy type of things or anything. But
I've always liked the idea of a big round bed, like in the middle of a room, just a big circle.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. That's.
I don't know where you put the nightstands and shit. Though. Oh, Cookie's excited. She knew I was talking about her. All right, man. Let's get out of here. Thanks again for coming.
Cool. Thank you. It was awesome.